I'm struggling. Oh, I'm struggling. Oh, I'm struggling. Hey guys, I'm Jessica Rohrig, and I am going into my second year of a doctorate PMHNP program. So I just finished up my third semester, aka my first year, and we jumped straight into the second year, no breaks, kind of a weekend break. But I wanted to go through what the first year looked like and throw a little bit of makeup on and chit chat about it. So I'm just going to go through the classes that I had. Kind of the feelings I had about the classes, maybe some tips I wished that I knew. And I have a buddy that I work with starting this program. So I'm going into my second year. She's just starting her first year. And it reminded me that there are so many questions. There are a lot of things that are not obvious from the get-go. So let's address some of those. Got my Mothman shirt on. I'm ready for fall. It's kind of breezy out and I'm loving it. All right, let's see. So I started this thing fall of 2024. That was my first semester, fall of 2024. And I've got a little curriculum that I'll just probably throw up here somewhere so you guys can get an idea of what it looks like. But at least for the first year, for the most part, you have a 16-week class, and then you have 2 8-week classes that kind of run like parallel alongside it. So you just have 2 classes throughout the whole semester. That's how it's supposed to go. So the first year I had advanced pathophysiology. That was my 16-week class that ran through the whole fall semester. And then I had nursing role and ethics for the clinical doctorate for the first 8 weeks, along with the pathophys. And then the second 8 weeks after the ethics class finished up, I had theories and foundations, nursing theories and foundations. So that was kind of the kickoff to graduate school for me. And it wasn't bad. I really don't have too many complaints about that first semester. It was just what I anticipated for a mostly online program. And that's what I'm doing, is mostly online. And I know, so I've got 2 PRN jobs. And when I talk about online learning, people are a little judgmental, is not necessarily the word. But I don't know, they don't think it's the best way to learn. And I understand that. I like in-class, like live classes. I like hearing something the teacher says and then thinking, that's not what I've heard before. Let me ask about it. Or like real-time feedback. Anecdotal stories. You don't get anecdotal stories when it's just pre-made lesson plans like this. I like hearing stories from people's practice. That's how you learn. So I get it. I understand that there is a preference towards in-person learning. People associate that with better outcomes and better professionals. However, most programs seem to be moving away from that. So I live in Ohio. I have done research on different graduate programs within Ohio. I work in the ICU, so there are some people looking to go the CRNA type route. And we've kind of looked into programs before, and they just shut one down in Columbus that was, I would say, mostly in person, mostly actual classroom settings with some online work, but they just closed it down and they opened one at the Ohio State University. They just opened a CRNA program, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago at this point, pretty recently, and it's mostly online CRNA program. So like very physical work, very muscle memory type work, and most of it's online. So everything's going towards online. You almost don't get a choice. If you have like the Ohio State University educating their future CRNAs through online education, I mean, who's doing in-person classes? Maybe undergrad. I feel like there's still a decent amount of undergrad in person. I mean, obviously not the like ASN to BSN type thing, but for your initial nursing degree, I feel like you can still find in-person classes. In fact, I think the school I'm at offers in-person classes for the undergraduate nursing programs, but not for the graduate. So it's not like, I feel like people think you just looked for the easy way out. Like, oh, that's online, I'll take it. That's not how it went down. I went to a local school. There's one brick and mortar, thinking, it's got a decent reputation in the community. So I picked that one, and it's 95% online with like 2 days of intensives before you go to clinicals, 2 in-person days of practicum type things before you can start your clinicals. So that's the kind of program I'm in. we kind of went off on a tangent there about programs, but that's the kind of program I'm in. So first semester, pathophys, ethics, and then theories and foundations, all online. Not bad, kind of what you would expect. A lot of discussion posts, couple quizzes, a lot of just read the textbook. Some of the teachers would pre-record lectures, but that was not the norm. That was not common. A lot of it is just self-led education. Just this is what we're supposed to be learning about, so look it up. Look it up and find out what you can and come back to me with a discussion post or a research paper or something. So advanced pathophysiology, that's kind of what you would expect out of a pathophysiology class. You know, if you're at the doctorate or the graduate point in your career, you've likely had pathophysics a handful of times, essentially building off of that anatomy and physiology we've had since high school and twisting it to what could happen in the diseased states, how we get to the diseased states. So, you know, if you've worked as a nurse, you've seen the diseased states, you've kind of experienced a decent amount of what you're going to be talking about in that class. And what I like about that class is it's very, I don't want to say black and white because nothing's black and white, but the pathologies, you can follow them, you can trace them. It's organ based, and then on a smaller level, it's tissue based, and on a smaller level, it's cellularly based, and you can kind of understand what's happening. It's not like we think this, we think it's fairly black and white. You have an idea of how things start and how we get places. And because of that, there's a lot of good education online. One of my favorite creators on YouTube is Zach Murphy, and his channel is called Ninja Nerd. I've learned so much from him. I've literally cited him in my reference list in my graduate papers because his information is so good and thorough. He is a physician assistant in an ICU, I think in Pennsylvania. And he started making videos when he was in school to help him retain the information. And they became so popular because he just has such a good way of teaching. And like, he's pretty funny. And that combination will help you remember things. So he keeps making these videos and he covers so many body systems, so many pathologies, lab work, IV fluids, cellular components. Like, he covers everything. He helped me understand my ICU patients, and now he's helping me pass pathophysiology and certain classes that require a good understanding of body systems. So I would highly recommend checking him out if you're in any kind of medical program. All right, that's probably enough powder. And then, like I said, nursing, role, and ethics for the clinical doctorate. That was the first 8-week class that went along that semester. It was kind of what you would expect. It went over like ethical principles and the people that came up with these ethical principles. And so that class, it was easy enough. Not bad at all. The teacher was nice. There's no issues with communication. And then we went into theories and foundations. That was the second half of the first semester. So we've still got pathophysiology chugging along full 16 weeks. And then the second half of the first semester, we added on theories and foundations. That was pretty average class too. I'm also not a huge fan of theory type classes. They just don't seem to give me a lot of useful knowledge. So that class was it wasn't hard, so I guess that's a plus. It just didn't seem useful. And I did have issues with the textbook in that class too. The textbook was ridiculous. It was so hard to read. I understand that it's a doctorate program and we should be able to pick out the information we need from whatever kind of source that we have. But it felt like whoever wrote this book was using it as their dissertation in whatever they were researching, like a PhD student or something. And they just decided to use the biggest words they could find. They got their thesaurus out and they said, this is the word I want, or this is the idea. And then they found the largest word that you could sub out for that, even if it didn't actually make sense, because sometimes subbing out words doesn't get the point across that you're looking for. But that's what they did. They're just like, it's that word. Does that have more letters than this word? We're going to use it. And it didn't make sense. It was so hard to read. And unfortunately, you kind of needed the textbook for this class based on the way the discussion posts and the quizzes were. So you had to read this textbook. You couldn't just find information on theories and foundations online. So the textbook was awful. That's what I remember from that class. Everything else seemed fine. Teacher seemed fine. Communication seemed fine. Textbook, awful. So the first semester, not half bad. That ended like the beginning of December. And then we basically had all of December off to spend time with family, enjoy the holidays, recoup your losses if you were working PRN and didn't get enough hours in. That's how I used it. I picked up a whole bunch of hours before the next semester started. But it was a pretty promising start to the program. Okay, I can do this. I've been out of school for a while. I think I finished my BSN maybe 2016. So I had been out of school for like 9 years. So that was a promising start to a graduate program. So then we go into spring of 2025. This is our second semester. Starts like the beginning of January. And we have got psych assessment and intervention across the lifespan. That's our 16-week course. So it runs along the whole semester. And then the first 8-week course is advanced health assessment. And the second 8-week course is healthcare policy. So the psych assessment and intervention across the lifespan, that was interesting. We started digging into some DSM diagnoses and like criteria for the different diagnoses. We also started learning some interview strategies and documentation for psych patients, mental status exam, all that kind of stuff. Pretty interesting class, definitely going to be useful. And I can appreciate that in a class. And then, like I said, along with that, the first 8 weeks, I had advanced health assessment, which I have mixed feelings about anyhow. I mean, I'm going into a psych program. I'm in a psych program. I'm going into the psych field. And it definitely feels like I need less of the full advanced health assessment. This is the advanced health assessment class for every nurse practitioner student going through this school. So FNPs, acute care NPs, psych NPs, I think even education maybe, the graduate education route. Everyone who is getting a higher education in nursing has to take this advanced health assessment class. So it's geared towards people who are doing some serious assessing. And I work in the ICU, so I can appreciate serious assessing, but it's likely a little intense for an eventual PMHNP. But it was still interesting. We used a program called Shadow Health, and it's like an online simulated patient, and you go through and assess them and ask them questions, practice your H&P and documentation. And it was a little misleading because they said, okay, go ahead and use the Shadow Health to, practice with it. See how the simulation responds to your assessment, your questions, and how it responds to you and how far you need to dig. So play with it a little bit and see how it responds. So I'm like, okay, that sounds like I have free reign to just play with it, assess different parts and pieces and ask random questions and see how it responds. So I know in the future when we are doing actual body systems what to expect from the simulation. Turns out they graded it as an overall assessment. So when I checked pedal pulses, 2 different times, at the beginning and the end, because I wanted to see if the patient sat upright, laid down, how she worked. I got points taken off because why would I assess pedal pulses twice? And random stuff like that. Like, why would you ask questions in this order? Because I was playing with it. I thought we were allowed to look at the Shadow Health and kind of figure it out. Nope, they graded it. And that was the first little insight I had into what this class might be like. The second insight I had into what this class might be like is when I wrote out a SOAP note maybe, and I asked a patient if they had any allergies, and they said no. So I documented no known allergies, and I got a 0 for that portion because they wanted specifics. They wanted food allergies, environmental allergies, latex allergies, medication allergies. I was not specific enough, therefore I got 0 points for that. I feel like that would, if somebody asked me if I had an allergy and I did of any kind, and it was, especially if it was life-threatening, I'd be like, yes. In fact, I had a mild reaction to sulfa 8 years ago, and it jogs my mind when someone says allergy that I had a mild reaction to a sulfa facial cleanser, and that sulfa can be a common allergen or irritant anyhow. So I feel like it would jog their mind. I feel like they were petty, taking points off for not specifying. But whatever, I knew that made me think that I knew what this instructor wanted, and I was just going to be as detailed as possible moving forward. Okay, so back to this class, because this is the first class that I really had an issue with my instructor. So I had an issue because she took points off when we were supposed to be playing with this Shadow Health thing. And then she took points off because I wasn't specific enough about the allergies. So in my head, I'm like, okay, she wants specifics. If that's what she wants, I will give that to her. This is a terminal degree for me. I'm not messing around. I'm going to do what it takes to make sure I get the grade. So I know I've told this story before, but I'm a new YouTube channel, so there's a good chance no one's heard it. I was doing a musculoskeletal assessment on a patient with right shoulder pain. And the instructor was very clear that any possible body system that could be involved in that right shoulder pain needs to be included in the note, in the focused note. And the cardiovascular system needs included every time. Anytime you have a patient come in with a complaint, you're going to listen to their heart, you're going to listen to their lungs. So make sure you always add the cardiovascular assessment and a pulmonary assessment. And then anything that might affect the system that you're working with. So I did cardiovascular, I did pulmonary, I did musculoskeletal, range of motion, all of that good stuff. And then I did a GI assessment because acute gallbladder issues can cause referred right shoulder pain. It's well known everywhere. Everywhere I've worked, every person I've run into, we all know acute gallbladder issues can cause right shoulder pain. So that is something that could cause right shoulder pain. I'm going to add in a GI assessment because there could be, if they're having nausea, vomiting, maybe related to greasy food intake or something, and we don't do that full assessment, we could be missing the cause of that right shoulder pain. And she took points off again, and she said, I just don't think you know how to do a focused assessment. I'm not sure why you would add a gastric assessment to a musculoskeletal assessment. Well, it's not any musculoskeletal assessment. It's specifically right shoulder pain. That's why I added it. But I didn't even email her back. I was passing the class with an A, so I didn't bother. But I didn't realize that I was going to run into this teacher 2 more times, and she was going to be just as problematic. So now I really wish that I would have told her my reasoning behind it, because I think she needed educated on why I did that. So that was my big beef with advanced health assessment. It was fine. It was similar to the undergrad health assessment, because in the undergrad health assessment, we were taught how to do the full assessment, the whole reflex hammer, tuning fork, monofilament test. We were taught it. You just don't use it as a floor nurse, as a bedside nurse 90% of the time. You might use this if you're dealing with OB type patients, like on magnesium. But for the most part, floor nurses don't use that type of assessment skills. So we learned it again in the advanced health assessment class, but none of it was like brand new information. It was fine. It was, besides not enjoying any of the communications with this instructor, the class itself was fine. So then we moved on. We finished that class up, passed it with an, A- probably because of the dumb points that got taken off. And then we went to healthcare policy. I really don't have anything big going on today. Do I want to do stamped eyeliner? Probably. It's my go-to. All right, let's do it. My eyes are just watering. That's why I'm fighting myself about this. So healthcare policy is kind of what it sounds like. It's a very political type class, talking about nurses forming political action committees and talking with lobbyists and using that route to get change in the healthcare system. It's interesting stuff. I'm not super interested in it. It's interesting information, but I'm not super interested in it. I wish I was, but I think I just don't have the time to be interested in it right now, because my main goal is becoming a PMHNP, to start working as a PMHNP. So adding anything else on, I've got 2 PRN jobs and then school full time. My goal is set in stone over here. So I don't have time to learn more about political action committees over here and put my time and effort into changing the world via the legal system. Maybe someday when I drop off one of the balls that I'm juggling. But at this point, I don't have the capacity to be super interested in that portion of things. I have a fan going. I think that's why my eyes are watering. Ew. It might be time for new stamps. That's not sharp. Oh, I didn't show you my DSM. I got little tabs to put on my DSM. It's the Bible for psych providers. It's the thing that will stay with you and probably stay on your desk, like even into practice. Granted, I'm sure you can find everything you need online about DSM diagnoses, but there's something about having the actual book with the diagnoses, with the differential diagnoses, with the criteria that you need to meet and the tests that you might administer and all of that good stuff. I feel like there's something about having it physically in front of you. So I have my DSM here, and I put little tabs on it to separate my diagnoses. The top is a little cluttered, and those are ones that I have a feeling that I won't be using as much, but they're still there. But these ones I saved, the side I saved for diagnoses that I had an idea that I would need to be able to get to quickly. So we've got the bipolar, major depressive disorder, social anxiety, generalized anxiety, PTSD. And then the first section here, also easy to find. We've got our autism, ADHD, learning disabilities, that type of thing. But so yeah, I've got, if I was a good buddy, I would have bought a pack of these for her as a little welcome to the program gift. But I did send her the link. So I do like it. It makes me happy. This whole book, it's shiny, it's beautiful, it's organized. And frankly, it's got really good information. It's not a pain to read. It's interesting. So it is large though. So when it comes to actual clinicals, I have a feeling it'll be useful to have with me, but it's also going to be a strain on my back along with everything else I'm going to need, like a laptop and things to just get you by in a workday lunch. And I have a feeling I'm going to be a pack mule coming into this place. So that's that. Okay, so that was essentially semester 2. So semester 3 is what I just finished up, and that was summer of 25. There wasn't much of a break in between spring of 25 and summer of 25. I think it essentially rolled right into it. But I had advanced pharmacology running the full 16 weeks. And then, like I said, we're supposed to have 2 8-week classes then, filling in. So we have 2 classes running alongside each other constantly. But something happened with the way that people signed up for these classes, and it made it so that they had to push the first class back to the second half. So we started the semester out with 1 class, and it was advanced pharmacology. And then the second half of the semester, we ended with 3 classes. And they're pretty intensive classes. So I got my butt kicked at the very end of the semester. I slept like 4 hours a day at most. And I didn't pick up at any of my jobs. And I just spent all of my time throwing together discussion posts and assignments and finals and papers and one thing after another after another after another. So that was that. Unfortunately, I knew from the beginning. I got an email from my advisor, who's also the director of the program, and she said, "Hey, sorry, this is how it worked out. I can open my class a couple days early, like 3 days early, if that helps you to plan ahead." It really didn't. 3 days early doesn't help plan ahead a full 8-week course when you're already busy and trying to work and do other things. But she said that was the best she had for me. That was the best she could do. It turned out, I won't say it turned out good, because who knows how it would have been if it went, if I had had the opportunity to take it how it was supposed to be taken. But I had such a problem with the pharmacology class that I used quite a bit of time trying to organize and figure out the pharmacology class. Because I had just finished up my 3rd semester, like I had just gone through and I did the course evaluations, and I gave it a pretty bad course evaluation. In fact, I wrote that if anyone is actually looking to learn pharmacology, I would not recommend this class. I didn't learn squat in this class. They had 3 instructors. Why do we have 3 instructors for this class? Nobody was communicating with each other, and unfortunately, one of the instructors was the one that I had a hard time with in the advanced health assessment class. She was apparently overseeing it. She created the syllabus for it or something. And because of that, she had a hand in putting out educational material. So I thought her involvement was going to be from afar, but I was mistaken. She's the only one who nearly the only one who put out announcements and any type of lectures. There were a couple lectures, a handful for the 16-week class. And she was the only one who did it. So we had a professor with her master's degree. We'll call her Professor H. She was the one that I signed up for. So when you sign up for classes, there were 2 options. And I knew that the person that I had an issue with from Advanced Health Assessment, the professor, she has her doctorate in nursing. So we'll call her Dr. O. I knew she was teaching one of the classes. And then I saw Professor H was teaching the other class. So I specifically signed up for Professor H's class so I could avoid Dr. O. And it turns out it didn't matter. she got involved in all of it somehow. And then, like the first week of the program, they essentially introduced Dr. E. I guess we'll call her Dr. C. Dr. C for her last name. She's a pharmacist, and she was going to help with grading, I guess. So we've got 3 instructors with their hand in this pot. And as we're going through the very first assignment, the first discussion post, it's listed as a video. It's listed as a Zoom discussion post, a Zoom discussion presentation, a Zoom discussion presentation. So I'm kind of like, what does that mean? Typically, when you think of Zoom, you think of communications. Sure. And I know I've seen recorded Zoom presentations from the instructors before, but a lot of times they'll do that if they have a live presentation, a live lecture, and they'll record it for people who didn't make it. So to me, it's always been like a way to connect with other people, not just a platform to put out information. So I emailed the instructor. I emailed Professor H because I thought that was my instructor, and she never got back to me. So cool. So I ended up just purchasing like Zoom Professional or something because it has the option to upload clips, but it was behind a paywall. So I emailed her again. I said, hey, I see this in Zoom. I see the option to upload videos, but it looks like it's behind a paywall. Is that the intention? Is that what you were wanting us to download? Nothing. I got nothing from her. So I went ahead and bought it. And I uploaded my video and gave them all the references I used, and I got 100% on it. So I thought, sweet, that must be what they're looking for. So then I send in my second week's presentation, and I'm struggling. I'm struggling. My eye's not cooperating. So I upload my video for the second week the same way I did it the first week, and I lost 2 points because I didn't upload my PowerPoint with it. But the PowerPoint was in the presentation that I recorded and uploaded as a link. So, but they wanted the actual .ppt available to them. That might be as good as it gets. My eye's betraying me right now. I don't think I'm going to put on any mascara because my eye keeps watering. Here we have it. So, lose points. I get a hold of them. I say, hey, it doesn't say anywhere that you need the PowerPoint itself. And they said, oh, so I emailed that to like all 3 teachers. And they said, oh, the expectations have been very clear from the start. False. False, they have not. So I went through the syllabus, and then I highlighted all of the areas where it said what the instructions were. None of them said to include the PowerPoint. I went to the instructions for that week, and I highlighted them, and none of them said to include a PowerPoint. I went to the assignments tab where they also have instructions. If you work as a nurse in the inpatient setting, and you've ever had to work with like receiving pharmacy meds, this might register with you. They'll say, did you check the patient room? Like if you're missing a medication, I need to give it, it's due, I can't find it. And you'll call pharmacy and say, hey, I need my medication. And they'll be like, did you check the patient room? Did you check the pneumatic tube system? Did you check the pharmacy inbox in your medication room? Did you check the medication refrigerator? Did you check the Pyxis? Was it loaded into the Pyxis? Did you check? So there's like 10 places to check for this freaking medication when you're busy and trying to give medications. And it feels like that when you're looking for instructions and like assignment details. It kind of feels like that. It's like, well, did you check the syllabus? Did you check the instructions in the actual assignment tab? Did you check the weekly instructions for the weekly lesson plan? Did you check the announcements tabs where teachers can just like upload, hey guys, it's week 2. We made it through the first week. Here's what we got going on this week. They might put instructions in there too. So I went through all of those places and I highlighted everywhere that it gave instructions, and none of those instructions had that they needed the PowerPoint. So I sent it, and I sent it to Professor H, and I CC'd Dr. O, and I CC'd Dr. C, and I CC'd the program director. And I said, hey, nowhere in any of this material does it say that we need this. And Dr. O was the one that took the lead on getting back to me. And she said, oh, thank you for bringing that up. We all make mistakes sometimes, technology is always changing, and it must have uploaded the wrong syllabus. My bad. Thanks for bringing it to my attention. So I thought, cool, we'll get our points back. and maybe they'll make their expectations clear as for what they're actually looking for in the future. So I wait and I wait and I wait and I wait like a week and a half. And by this point, we're like going into week 5. So over a month in this class, and there's still minimal communication. And finally, I email all of them again. The whole bunch, the 3 instructors and the program director. And I said, hey, it's me again. I'm just checking in. We talked about how there was a mistake with the syllabus. Are we going to get points back for this? And do you have any intention of notifying the class that there was a mistake? She said, oh, thank you. Yes, I got busy or something. And so she put out an announcement to the class, and the announcement was a whole bunch of BS. It was a whole bunch of nonsense. It said that someone had brought to my attention that you guys are struggling with the technology instructions or something. She basically blamed it on us. Like, you guys clearly can't read directions. So I'm going to go ahead and give you your points back for that second week's discussion post because you didn't understand that you needed the PowerPoint. Not, oh, I made a mistake and uploaded the wrong syllabus. Someone brought to my attention that you guys are all struggling with reading. All of you doctorate students don't know how to read, so I'll make it clear for you one more time that this is what I expect. Thanks. So I got my points back, but that's when I realized that not only have I had issues with this Dr. DNP being very cocky, and I guess because of the position she's in as instructor, not giving any benefit of the doubt that the student might know what's going on. This was the first time that I realized that she actually would not take responsibility or accountability also. So like not to expect that from her. I started getting a better picture of what I was working with an instructor. So we had a lot of issues, and we ended up having 2 students drop that class. One dropped the class, one dropped the whole program. They kind of said this is a joke, and I'm hoping I can pick up where I'm leaving off in a different program that's more organized. And that was unfortunate because I made buddies with this person, and they were also local to the school, kind of like I am. So it was somebody that I knew I was in their time zone. I knew I could talk back and forth with them, and I had some stuff in common with them, which was cool. But now she dropped the entire program. So having the pharmacology as the only class for a couple weeks, it was helpful because we had so many issues with communication with the instructors. So I got to focus on that. Plus, I had just started my new PRN job at the State Forensic Hospital. And it's a PRN job for me, but the orientation was full-time for 3.5 weeks. So the first 3 weeks were 40-hour weeks, and the second week I put in like 24 hours. Not what I was expecting. So I was like working my tail off and trying to email these instructors and trying to get my homework done and be a good student. And luckily it was just the one class. So that did work out. But then the second half of that semester, the summer semester, got so busy because Dr. O, who we have now had for advanced health assessment, advanced pharmacology, well, she now is also heading epidemiology. So I start epidemiology in the second half, and I start the therapeutic interventions in the second half. So now I've got Dr. O for 2 classes this semester. And the epidemiology, it's not like it's part of the PMHNP curriculum, but it's also part of the FNP and education and management, whatever other graduate nursing programs they have. There was a mix of students. It wasn't like a lot of the psych classes are just my cohort, or the people that I started with. They're in my classes and I see them across the semesters. But the epidemiology, it had a mix of people from a mix of different programs. And some of them, it was their first class with Dr. O. So they literally created a chat thing. I'm so old. I told somebody else about it. They're like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. I don't even remember what it's called. They essentially sent out an email to everybody, and if you accepted the email, you could download an app where you could message people back and forth. So the whole class created like a message board thing, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, what is up with this instructor? Why is she so unorganized? Why, the instructions are not clear in the syllabus and this and that. And I'm kind of laughing because this is my third round with this woman. I know how problematic she is already, and it's great to see the outrage in the other students. It sucks that they have to go through it, but I'm glad it's not just me. it was nice to see that everyone else is like, oh my goodness, this, like, it's not my ego. There's always the chance that it's just an ego thing. Like, I've been a nurse for 12 years and I've got something to prove. I don't feel like that, but there's always the possibility that that's part of it. But it wasn't. Everybody had issues. Nobody could understand her syllabus. Nobody could understand her instructions or expectations. And everyone was super frustrated. And she got tons of emails within the first couple of weeks of the epidemiology class starting. She also made several mistakes with grading. We have discussion posts that have an initial post that's typically due on like Tuesday, and then replies that are due by Friday. So our final assessment, our final for the course was a presentation on a topic that we picked, but it was set up similar to the discussion post where we posted our presentation and then we had to watch other presentations and reply to those. So that was kind of how our final was set up. Well, she ended up grading our final on a Wednesday. So our final was due on Tuesday, and then our replies were due by Friday, and she graded it on Wednesday. And she said, hey, great job with your final, but I'm taking 2 points off because you didn't reply to any of your classmates. Yeah, because the replies aren't due till Friday. So we all had to get a hold of her again. And she corrected it, but the amount of mistakes that she has made, I'm sure she has a lot on her plate, but that's not my problem. I am just trying to get through this program, putting a lot of money into it, putting a lot of time into it, and I can't have one of my instructors like actively working against me for no good reason, except for the fact that she's been unorganized. So that's essentially how I finished up my first year. The third semester was definitely the most difficult so far. And if I had to take away any lessons from the first year of the 3-year doctorate PMHNP program, I would say utilize outside resources. YouTube, there are so many professionals on YouTube, anything from pathophysiology to biology to therapy. There's a lot of good therapy resources on YouTube. So that's tip 1. Tip 2, make friends. I suck at making friends. I'm 32 years old. I've had my best friend since kindergarten. My sister is my other best friend. And I've been with my husband for 16 years. I picked him and I stuck with him. Pick it and stick it. I'm getting a little bit better about it because I'm understanding the importance of it. But I would have said that I'm not very good at making friends. But it's nice. It's nice to have another opinion and set of eyes reading some of these instructions in the program. So I kind of told you guys that I lost the one friend. She dropped out of the program. But I have another girl that we discovered that we're in all the same classes, which is kind of how the psych program works anyhow. You follow the cohort. I spilled water on myself. Ooh, I look like a mess. You follow the cohort through all 3 years is how it's supposed to work out. So me and this other girl started texting, and we've been bouncing ideas off of each other and trying to figure out if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. It also helps when you have difficult instructors. It helps to have a buddy that you can kind of complain to and address it that way. Take it up, talk with each other instead of saying something you'll regret to the instructor. And expect to learn a decent amount from clinicals. That's what I'm hoping for. Because while some of these classes have been informative, I would say I didn't learn much in pharmacology. Did a lot of research, did a lot of self-research, but that's something I would do anyhow if I had questions about medications. So when it comes to actually prescribing for specific diagnoses, I have a feeling I am going to be absorbing a lot of that during actual clinical time. Time management is pretty important. I like using physical paper planners and writing everything down. I've got 2 PRN jobs and all of these classes and work that I need to keep track of. So I assign everything a highlighter, and I will highlight pay periods so I know like when to pick up time during that blocked out period. And then I'll do that for both jobs. And then I'll write in what assignments I have due and just try my best to make everything fit together. It's easier for me to look at if I can have it in front of me and write on it and doodle on it and update it that way. So it's hard to believe. I feel like I just started this program. I feel like I'm a brand new student again, but the first full year is done. 1/3 of this program is done. It goes fast. The time is going to go by anyhow. So if you're concerned about starting a program, the time's going to pass anyhow, and you can spend that time at your bedside job or wherever you're working, or you can spend that time maybe also at your bedside job, but working to further yourself into the next step of the career. So It's doable. It's doable, and we've got this. And I will see you next time.